The Jesus Trilogy, Part 1, The Four Messiahs, Chapter 40. Town Center Square had changed little in the past 4 years. A couple of new palm trees graced the area, and a Roman plaque now hung on the stone wall that encircled the square and its life-giving well. The Romans had defaced everything and everyone with an iron hand. Little Jesus and his classmates were not so little anymore. Their teacher was still the same one they'd had in the first grade. She had so far survived the bunch. As a class, they were above average intelligence and achievement, but they were also above average in spirit. The fourth grade class of the School of Nazareth was now 35 strong. Nazareth was on the east-west trade route between the Mediterranean Sea and the Sea of Galilee. It lay in a three-cornered valley amongst lush green hills. The town was growing slowly. The census at the time of Jesus' birth was put at 1,000, but in the years since, 10 of them, it had grown to about 3,000. Much of the growth could be attributed to the traders and soldiers. The Roman garrison had to be reinforced so as to police the increase in citizenry. But more trouble came from the traders, robbers, and even street gangs. Hold-up and murder on the highways was becoming an increasing problem, and of course Rome was not about to have its trade routes violated. Jesus had become a handsome young boy. He had long, dark hair and was a hard worker, demonstrating much of his father Joseph's talent. He was artsy, yet athletic too. Already his lean, muscular body showed some definition. The girls oohed and awed at him, but, like his fellow 10-year-olds, he would have nothing to do with them. His best buddy was his cousin Johnny. Johnny was 6 months older, but he was held back, so he and Jesus were in the same class. They were inseparable. Johnny was about 3 inches taller and about 10 pounds heavier than his young cousin. Johnny was scheduled to play fullback on the fourth grade football team. Jesus would play wide receiver, and Barabbas, the one with the strongest arm, would play quarterback. Judas, the fastest of the four, was the halfback. Johnny's nickname was Fuzzy. He had a tremendous amount of hair, not just on his head. It was dark and curly all over his body, except for a 6-inch patch of bare skin in the small of his back. He was teased incessantly about this and would get into a fight after fight. Johnny would always win unless the teacher broke it up first, but the teasing continued unabated. Barabbas was a little shorter than Jesus, but had a stronger upper body. His biceps were already beginning to bulge. He worked out with weights on a daily basis. Judas was the shortest of the four, but he was fast and quick like a cat. He was also the spokesman of the four, a real talker, and the only one of the four to pay attention to the foxes, as he referred to the fairer sex. One other redeeming quality of Judas was that he always had money. The fourth grade football team beat not only the fifth grade team, but the sixth grade team as well. Mary tried to attend all the games, and Joseph got to a few. The fifth grade quarterback was a loudmouth whom none of them liked. Simon was his name, but everyone called him Peter. No one knew why. He wasn't very good at quarterback either. The four were happy to beat him, but they were even happier to beat the sixth grade team. 2 brothers were on that team, twins actually. One was the quarterback and the other the halfback. James and John were their names, but everybody knew them as the Sons of Thunder. At least one of the two got kicked out of every game. Their tempers had become legendary. The twins blamed it on their father. He was a fisherman who worked in the Galilee waters and was known for miles around as the most hot-tempered, foul-mouthed man in northern Judea. He had the scars to prove it. The 4 fourth graders were ecstatic when they beat the sixth grade team. Judas had started egging the twins on. Eventually both of the twins were tossed out of the game. Judas was also tossed, but with the twins gone, Johnny took over in the second half and the rout was on. The foxes, or fairer sex, were subject to usual repressions of the time. Rachel, Jesus' sister, was 4 years ahead of her brother in grade 8. Mary, the pretty one whom Jesus had once told his mother he would marry, was tall, taller than most of the boys. According to Judas, she was a real knockout. Judas would go up and talk to the girls after class. None of the other boys ventured or really wanted to talk to the girls. But Jesus did want to talk to Mary. He He didn't want to talk to her in a crowd, thus the opportunities were few. No matter. He was busy with his studies, his art, working for his dad, and his sports, football mainly. Joanna's daughter was Mary's best friend. They were inseparable. Ashley was the second prettiest girl in the fourth grade, also tall but with more of a blonde tint to her hair. Some said she colored it, but Ashley would never tell. Let's go down to the store and get some drinks, Judas said. Yeah, let's. We got time, Barabbas chimed in. I don't know. I'm supposed to be home to help Dad, Jesus answered. Just 5 extra minutes, Judas assured them. Okay, Johnny said. The four headed down to the town center store. It was on the way home for the four of them. Wonder if they got in that new apple drink. Cider, I think it's called. I think so, Barabbas said. I haven't got any extra money, Jesus said. Nor do I, said Johnny. He was the poorest of the four. Zach's priestly pension was barely enough for the old couple and their young son to subsist on. Johnny had to work each afternoon as a church caretaker, but he didn't mind much. He adored his parents and welcomed exercise. He must retain his title as the toughest guy in the class. Hi, Manassas, Judas said. Manassas had taken over the store when his old man had passed away a couple of years ago. He had to take over in order to survive. But business was good, no real competition. How are you boys today? Good, Barabbas said. What can I do for you fellows? Manassas asked. Heard you got a new drink, Judas said. Sure do, Manassas said. Can we try it? Well, it's pretty expensive. No problem. Money's no object, Judas said with his usual confidence. Well, it's 20 pence a glass. Here you are, Manassas. Drinks all around. Judas slapped down a shekel on the counter. Well, okay, Manassas said, smiling. He poured 4 glasses hurriedly, and the four sat around a table near the counter. And keep the change, Judas said in a voice loud enough so all in the store could hear. He finished his glass first and said, Take your time, boys. I gotta pick up a couple things. The three went on sipping cider. Judas sauntered around the store, going from shelf to shelf. He stopped when he spotted a small pocket knife. Checking to see that no one was watching, he deftly slipped the knife into his own pocket. A little further down the aisle, he saw several small flasks of wine. I bet these will make for a good time, he thought to himself. He checked again. No one was looking, and he slipped the small flask into his other pocket. As he pulled his hand out of the left pocket, he jumped. Manassas was coming around the end of the aisle. Find everything you want? Yes, no, just looking, Judas said, his face turning red. Well, you let me know if I can help. By the way, how was that cider? Oh, great, thanks, Judas said, his muscles untensing. He went back to the table. Find anything, Judas? Johnny asked. Nah, not today. Well, 5 minutes are up. 10, actually. Thanks for the drink, Judas, Jesus said. Yeah, you're a great friend, Barabbas said. You're welcome, boys. Judas' face was beaming as the four left. They said goodbye and headed their separate ways. Judas sauntered home. Home was in the south part of Nazareth, not far from old Barnabas' shop. He went by it every day on the way to school. The sun was now on the western horizon, a red glow with a hint of violet stained the clouds. Life is so good, Judas thought, and he began whistling a tune. It was the top 20 hit, Rachel, Rachel. In fact, it had been the #1 song in Judea last year. Manna, the group who sang it, was his favorite. There was a big outdoor concert in the Red Rock Valley every week of the summer. Last Saturday night, when he was in the audience, there had been 10 different bands. Judas played backup guitar in the band Black Chariot. Their song Blue Fire had placed a dismal 14th out of 20 songs that night, but no matter. Teens and preteens were a fickle lot. Next week it might be voted #1. The human mind is a very strange animal, he thought. He looked around toward the left as he walked by Barnabas Complex. Thinking he saw a light in the window, he looked in and saw that the door was open. Curious by nature, he walked over and pushed the door ever so slightly. There may be an opportunity here, he thought, but to his disappointment the door creaked and the voice from the inside. Is that you, Barn? Judas immediately recognized it as the voice of Jesus' father, Joseph. opened the door enough to pass through, and walked back to the rear of the shop where he had seen the light. "Oh, hi, Judas. What are you up to?" "Nothing much. Just wondered if Jesus might be around." He knew Jesus frequently came down to help Joseph at night. He knew Jesus was becoming quite good at carpentry. Judas hated work, considered himself a businessman. He also knew full well that Jesus was not here, so he just left him at the store. "What are you working on?" Judas asked Joseph. "Just finishing up a corner cabinet for a customer. Care to take a look?" Judas rubbed his hand over the smooth, perfect finish and then slid it on the perfectly square corner. As his little finger reached the corner of the newly finished cabinet, he felt a sting. He reflexively pulled away and saw a drop of blood coming from his fingertip. He also saw a little stain of blood on the corner of the newly finished cabinet. Judas stuck his finger in his mouth and pulled it out to check if the bleeding had stopped. There was just a little ooze. "You okay?" Joseph asked. "I'm fine, but what about the cabinet?" "I'm so sorry, I should have warned you," Joseph said apologetically. "Let me see your finger." He took Judas' hand. "I've got gauze." "No, no, it's nothing. But what about your beautiful cabinet?" Judas queried. "No problem. The solvent will take it out, and I'll just sand down this corner and restain it. Won't take long. A little stain does amazing things." "And so do you. Please let me pay for your trouble. It's such a beautiful piece. Must cost a fortune." Judas held out a shekel. "No, no, Judas. It will only take me a few minutes to fix it." "I insist." "No, I can't take it. If you wish, put it in the offering plate at church this week." They both knew Judas hadn't been to church for a long time. But he said, "I'll just do that." "Good." "Seriously, what does a cabinet of this quality run?" "Oh, maybe 25, 30 shekels on the market." "You must be a rich man," Judas said. "No, I just make ends meet 5 kids, you know." "No, I guess I don't. I haven't got any brothers or sisters." "Wish I did, though. Jesus is kind of like a brother to me." He was staring down at the floor sullenly. He tried to not let it bother him, but it did. "Well, when you grow up, you can have a ton of kids. No loneliness then. In fact, you get desperate for a little peace and quiet," Joseph said. "Funny how people are never satisfied," Judas said. He regretted the words as soon as he said them. He liked Joseph and didn't want to offend him, but Judas already had a bad habit of offending his friends. Joseph did understand, though. Judas says, "What are you going to do when you get older?" "I expect to get into some type of business, maybe sales. I like dealing in money." Judas' finger had begun to drip again. "Let me run and get that gauze." "Okay." Judas put the bleeding digit back in his mouth. It was smarting now and it began to swell a bit. "What next?" he thought. Judas sat down on the stool. Joseph brought back some gauze and wrapped the little finger tightly. "Sorry, I haven't got any alcohol." When the wrapping was complete, Judas pulled his hand back and momentarily lost his balance on the three-legged chair. He put his non-injured hand on the ground to regain his balance. As he did so, the small flask of alcohol that he had pilfered at the store fell to the ground. It hit a pebble and smashed into pieces. "Nuts," Judas said quietly. "It's for my mother. It's her birthday." Joseph knew it was expensive, probably cherry brandy, and he suspected Judas would drink it himself. He also knew the underage boys could not buy liquor even for their parents, but he said nothing. "Could have used some of that brandy for that Nick." He gave a little laugh. "Yeah, I guess so." "There's a little in the cap," Joseph said. Judas already had the finger wrap, but he knew the pain would be eased with the alcohol. Joseph carefully unwrapped the now swollen finger and applied the alcohol. Judas screamed in agony, but then he felt the pain ease. Relief was immediate. "Thanks, Joseph," Judas said sincerely. "Sorry about the cut," Joseph said. "Sorry about the cabinet." "Take it easy now, son," Joseph said as Judas walked out into the twilight merging with darkness. Joseph shook his head. He wondered how he could help that boy. He would talk to Jesus about it when he had a chance. Work was done for the night. He turned out the light and headed for home. "How lucky I am," he thought. "No loneliness in this house, just love. God truly is good."